Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all. It's Bear here. And I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel, aboxwithnolid, a channel I'm creating not only to just bring awareness to the understandings around the reality complex trauma creates, but I also want to delve into the understandings and the mechanics behind it all so that you can learn and develop your own ways to heal. Now, I'm still carrying forward with attachment because it is such a vastly complex part of who we are. And there's so many ways of looking at it. And there's so many different stages of understanding with it. But like I said in the previous video, when we look at healing attachment, I want to look at this video, and it's not my intent to discourage or to turn people away from Western therapies. That's not my intention at all. But I do understand when you've been around these things and around the aftermath of complex trauma and all the forums and groups and everything, because I come from an adoption perspective. I've been around it for decades with all the groups and everything, the advocating and all the stuff I've tried to do to make a difference and to bring awareness for decades. You get a well-rounded sense of where things fall down. And I know so many people, when you save up the money or you have the resources to get counseling or to get some therapeutic support, the level of expectation is higher than that therapy can provide, especially when we're looking at healing attachment and how we connect. And I want to, in this video, go into the reasons why, and I don't want it perceived as attacking therapies, because as I said, that's not my intent. But I also want to create the balance of expectation around what therapies can provide so they can be put into the place that they need to be. And you can bring in these other components to support them so you get a better outcome. The reason attachment is so hard to heal is simple. Any therapeutic sense, you cannot control the person's ecology except when they're in that session room with you. And to heal attachment, we need to be surrounded by an ecology that not only is supportive, but also is natural enough to teach us the variations and the subtleties of problem solving, interactions, and gradually getting out of and developing the skill sets to get out of survival into a more productive and explorative process of connecting and belonging in that purpose to truly discover how we can belong and be part of. There's the difficulty. You can create role plays, you can create enactments, you can hire a hall and have group therapies where everybody's doing these parts, but it's so intellectually structured, it's not natural. And our nervous system and our body knows that it's not natural. And when you're in those role-playing parts, you're more focused on playing the role than naturally developing and exploring how to connect. And that's the difficulty in a nutshell of why healing attachment is so challenging. And to move forward with it, it's not that it cannot be healed, but we need to look at it in a different framework and we need to approach it in a different way. And as I said in one of the previous videos, we need to create an ecology that supports and gives us the structure and the ability for our neurology, our nervous system, our neurophysiological self, the cognitive structures and the interactional structures within our brain to alter, for that neuroplasticity to get engaged, because we're approaching and experiencing things differently often enough to create enough resource to counterbalance our survival, to step out of survival into exploration and to heal on that path to belonging and becoming everything we hope to be. It's like you got these two counter arguments that we need to feed. The one that supports change, and it needs to be stronger and have all the answers for our survival state. Because if we want to heal trauma, we need to get out of survival. We need to support our body and our nervous system, our neurophysiology, all the components of us, to get out of survival long enough to start to interact and create some real change. And that's where somatic therapies have a lot more success, because of this titration. We cannot influence a person's ecology, or you cannot influence your entire ecology enough to control it, but you can in moments. And I'm not promoting somatic therapies, it's just a really good base to start in the Western world because of the background of where it comes from. And in the next video, I will get into a great amount of detail, or as much as I'm able to, trying to explain a different perspective again from the Western society. Why indigenous structures, like I said in the previous video, are so easily adapted into healing attachment trauma. It gives an excellent scaffold to build a base upon, to be able to create an ecology that is supportive enough, long enough, to create the counter arguments enough against your survival state to finally come out of survival. When we're out of survival, we can access parts of ourselves to change. When we're in survival, our body won't let us. That is why I've said in earlier videos around, graze eating and doing all these, bringing, touching different textures and temperatures and so forth, bringing yourself into this constant presence of right now, assessing now, what am I under threat right now? All of this builds this base, this ecology, that when we have moments of where we're around a really cool thing that's happening, something that's really enjoyable for us, those moments of special connections, when everything is flowing and it's really great, we can get out of survival long enough to feed that counter argument of our survival state. And then when we step out of that or move out of that ecology, we can go back into a survival state, but we've fed the argument against it. We've given ourselves a bit more gray, a bit more ability to titrate between the two states. It's like doing physio. You do a little bit first, you gradually create the strength and the stabilities and the movements before you start doing full-on exercise. It's exactly the same approach when working with healing attachment and how we connect. Think of it as a rehabilitation, like a physio. And it's that titrating, that going backwards and forwards from a survival state into I'm exploring it, this is really cool, and then I'm back into survival because I need to function. And even if coming out of survival is only for a few moments, it will gradually become more recognizable that you can. And that's how you can start to lay this foundation. And when you're working with Western different therapies, you can bring them in more, because you can recognize I can come out of survival, learn this skill, go back into survival to function. And gradually you will get more and more confident and learn the skill sets you need to cope, to process, to problem solve, to recognize the actual level of threat that something is. Not this overwhelming sense of threat that's a singular response developed when you were very young or when you went through the multitudes of traumatic experiences. When we do this, we can start to support the structures we need to heal. But as I said in the previous video, attachment is a living process. It's a living ecology within us. And it's an ecology that is continually trying to answer those two fundamental questions of am I safe and do I belong? So when you bring that into this understanding, when you bring the understanding in that I need to create moments around me where the physical ecology, the environment around me is supporting my healing, am I getting to learn myself, am I getting to trust myself, am I getting to answer those questions of safe and belonging, and going backwards and forwards, that titration between the two states, you can slowly feed that counter-argument against survival. You can realize that I don't need to be so embedded in my survival state. It is a tool that I can use. It's not a place where I need to live. But as I said in the beginning of this video, the question of why is attachment so hard to heal is because we cannot fake the ecology that we need to learn from. Because we know it's fake. We know it's staged. It needs to be as real as possible, as everyday as possible, but also intelligently monitored to be able to prevent bad things from happening. Because if we have a bad experience, we're only going to reinforce that survival state even more. So in the next video, I want to delve into a way of viewing things from an indigenous perspective, the indigenous protocols that I mentioned, several videos ago, to help just to create an understanding of how we can do this. But as always, I love your guys' feedback and comments. Please don't ever feel like I'm attacking any therapies or any structures, or please don't feel like there is no way to do this. I'm just trying to point out the potholes so that you don't fall in them. And from all these years of people telling me and what I've experienced and what I've seen others fall into these potholes and the price tags that's attached to them, so that you don't have to. Or that you can go, well, now that I know that these things exist, I can do this without going through that negative experience again. So please be mindful, please be kind, please be gentle. And I'll see you next time. Hope.